This is just an ordinary wooden cabin, but every man will show an expression of enjoyment after coming out. Villagers line up for hours just to experience it for 2.5 minutes. You might think there's some special service inside, but in fact it's just a house with underfloor heating. It turns out this is a medieval world, where poor people freeze to death in winter. As a civil engineering graduate, I unexpectedly transmigrated into a novel as a baron's eldest son. However, becoming a noble didn't make me happy at all. The baron's family is deep in debt, and this body I've inherited belongs to a total scoundrel. He used to commit all sorts of misdeeds in the territory. The villagers have long held grudges against him, so this body is nothing more than a useless noble doomed to die early. My only option is to change how the people in the territory see me. To avoid the novel's inevitable tragic ending, as a civil engineering graduate, I was amazed to find that houses in this world lack underfloor heating. Most families can only rely on fireplaces for warmth, but fireplaces alone can't heat an entire house. If I can build houses with underfloor heating here, they'll definitely sell like hotcakes. I might not only make a fortune from this, but also pay off all the baron's family debts. Finally, my civil engineering knowledge can be put to use. I'll never have to haul bricks at construction sites like in my past life. At that moment, a blueprint for an underfloor heated house appeared in my mind. Suddenly I heard a system notification in my ears. It seems to have awakened my golden finger. Congratulations, you have activated the relationship value system. You can earn points by improving relationships with key characters. However, the system didn't explain what these points are for. I thought to myself, since it mentions improving relationships with key characters, then this guard next to me, Havel, must be one of them. After all, this guy is the main character of the entire novel. Sure enough, a notification above Havel's head showed a favorability of -30. I flashed him a sly smile. You're really handsome, thinking it would flatter the protagonist. But instead his favorability dropped further. He scoffed and replied, yeah, I already know I'm handsome. I was speechless. This guy is really narcissistic. I decided to ignore the system for now. Just now, from Havel's words, I immediately sought out the tavern owner. I laid a contract for an underfloor heated house in front of him. Boss, you don't need to pay the full construction fee, but the damages I caused to your equipment earlier will be considered as part of the payment. The tavern owner looked at me with a doubtful expression. He activated a skill wall of mind. He clearly didn't believe I'd willingly come to compensate him. Damn it, this body's credibility score is way too low. Looks like I'll have to make good use of this scoundrel image for now. I immediately put on a villainous expression. Old man, give me your hand, we'll be seeing a lot of each other. Can't we at least build some mutual trust? Sure enough, this method worked. The tavern owner, frightened, hurriedly signed the contract. The system even praised me for being such a scumbag, but I couldn't care less. My business empire begins with this first order. Boss, you've made a wise decision. I promise you won't regret it. Havel saw me threatening the owner into signing the contract, and assumed I was scheming a new form of bullying. I can't believe you look so upright, yet your ideas are so absurd. Have you ever heard of cognitive dissonance? Based on your past actions, you'll probably keep doing the same. Havel insisted it wasn't prejudice, but experience and statistics. I grabbed a shovel and started building the house. Then I told Havel, whether it's the boss or her mother, I'll make sure they both smile. Their smiles will be the foundation of my wealth. I dug up the soil, carried it out, and packed it down. I kept repeating this to lay the foundation. The wood was supplied from the baron's estate warehouse. I used heavy timber to build the main structure. Then I coated it with clay dug from the riverside. That completed the exterior. By the time I finished, I was utterly exhausted. I couldn't help but complain about this body's weak stamina. Havel, on the other hand, didn't lift a finger to help. He just stood there making snide remarks. But deep down he was clearly amazed. He didn't expect me to actually honor the contract with the boss. Is this really the same scoundrel as before? As the deadline approached, I knew there was no time to rest. I grabbed an axe and got back to work. Suddenly Havel snatched the axe from my hands. He then asked me what he should do. It seemed his conscience had finally kicked in. I gestured at him. Just cut the planks to this size and it'll be fine. Havel disdainfully tossed a pile of wood into the air. Countless sword slashes precisely cut the wood into the required sizes. I couldn't help but give him a thumbs up, amazed at how fitting it is for him to be the protagonist of the novel. He's destined to become a sword saint in the future. Quietly I walked up behind Havel and patted his shoulder. When you're done with that, come help me shovel the ground. Havel was stunned by my shamelessness. Not even a word of thanks. And now I'm adding to his workload? This guy is absolutely brazen. I realized Havel helped me out of curiosity. He wanted to see what kind of scam I was planning. You just want to see the results quickly, right? Then what's the best way to do that? Of course, it's by working together. The faster we finish, the sooner you'll know what I'm scheming. Havel reluctantly agreed to help me finish the job faster and confirm the truth. With Havel's help, our progress sped up several times over. Next, we just needed to dig the fire channels for the underfloor heating. Finally, we completed everything just before the deadline. This became the first house in this world with underfloor heating. Havel curiously asked about the writing on the wall. That's my brand logo. I called over the tavern owner and his mother. Everything would soon be revealed. The otherworldly residents who had never experienced underfloor heating were instantly won over by its warmth. The tavern owner's mother said her legs no longer hurt, and her back wasn't sore anymore. She even claimed she could climb 6 flights of stairs with ease. Such is the magical power of underfloor heating. Havel was astonished. Is this really the same scoundrel young master? He couldn't believe I had actually worked hard and fulfilled my promise to the villagers. And just as I said, they were both smiling happily. At that moment the system gave a notification. Havel's favorability has increased by 2 points. You've successfully earned 36 relationship points. I smiled faintly, although this order counting the cost of the materials was a complete loss. It didn't matter. This first underfloor heated house was just a model for promotion. Word spread quickly from 1 to 10 then to 100. Out of curiosity nearby residents came to experience it, and everyone who felt the warmth was completely convinced. Feels warm, right? Don't you want a house like this for yourself? Now we offer 2 types of contracts. The first option is to build a new house in your yard. The second option is to renovate the flooring in your current house. Of course, if you sign up for both, I'll give you a 10% discount on the construction fee. However, while the villagers saw the benefits of the house, they still didn't fully trust me in this body. If that's the case, I'll just keep using my scoundrel persona to scare them into signing. Come on, this price is already very cheap. Can't we at least have some basic trust between us? If they won't trust me, I'll double down on the scoundrel act to close the deals. Suddenly a voice called out to stop me. It was none other than this body's father. He had a favorability rating of -20 above his head. It seems he's another key character whose relationship I need to improve. I was summoned back to the Lord's mansion. Previously I had been avoiding meeting the Baron at all costs. After all, what if he forbids me from continuing my work? Speak, what kind of scheme are you pulling this time? I replied in my usual scoundrel fashion. The tavern owner ordered a house with underfloor heating, so I'm building him one. You're also signing contracts with other residents, right? The Baron said the residents of the territory were precious to him. He wouldn't allow me to deceive them. Since I couldn't explain myself, I decided to run for it. Just as I stood up, he called me back. Are you doing this because of the family's situation? Don't worry, I can still handle things as they are. So stop causing trouble. Having read the novel's ending, I knew he wouldn't be able to manage the territory's debts. He reminded me of my late father from my past life. Always hiding problems and never talking about them. Always pretending everything was fine. I left him with one sentence. Please don't give up. I'll do my best too. Then I turned and walked away. As I thought about how many orders I'd taken, I ran into a fat man and a skinny man. They didn't even greet me. The son of the lord of this territory. Driven by curiosity, I followed them. Sure enough, they turned out to be the territory's creditors. I couldn't help but smirk knowingly. Back in my room, I decided to study the system. By interacting with the notification panel, I learned that points could be used to develop skills. The system could develop skills based on my knowledge. I used 35 RP points to unlock basic measurement and basic design. Basic measurement gave me a titanium alloy green vision. It allowed me to precisely measure buildings and terrain. Additionally, the system surprisingly allows me to summon imaginary companions. These companions have unique personalities and skills. If they could replace modern machinery for work, the efficiency would improve drastically. But each summon costs 50 points. It seems the top priority is to quickly earn more RP points. Meanwhile, the Baron's 2 creditors were getting bolder. They even suggested taking the Baroness as payment for the debt. Suddenly a voice came from behind. Even if you're creditors, you can't be this rude. Did you forget something? Hand over your invitation first. The fat and skinny men looked confused. According to Article 3 Section 6 of the Kingdom's Noble Law, those entering a noble residence without an invitation are considered trespassers. Havel cut off the trespasser's arms. The 2 men, seeing Havel already drawing his sword, were instantly drenched in cold sweat. The 2 men fled in panic, not looking back. At this moment the Baron looked horrified. He loudly demanded to know what I was trying to do. After all, those men were the territory's creditors. They had been treated with fine food and drinks before, and even that wasn't enough. Now things had completely fallen apart. But I had already prepared a solution. These are the deposits for the heated houses. They should be enough to cover this month's interest. However, the Baron believed the money was extorted from the residents, so he refused to use it. It wasn't until Havel spoke up that the Baron's concerns were eased. He politely ended the discussion with me. As I expected, the system gave another notification. Baron Frontlaw's favorability has increased by 6 points. You've successfully earned 60 RP points. What will my first imaginary companion be like? That evening I found an empty field. With an excited heart and trembling hands, I summoned my imaginary companion. A green beam of light slowly outlined a magic circle in front of me. But wait, isn't this magic circle way too small? Suddenly a hamster-like creature emerged from the circle. No, it wasn't just hamster-like, it was a hamster. I was completely dumbfounded. My expression of disdain was unmistakable. It seemed I hadn't hit the jackpot this time. The little hamster saw my disgust. It panicked and began chirping frantically. And strangely I could understand what it was saying. The little guy said it could do many things. Then it spit out a lump of something from its mouth. Picking it up I found a manual and a packet of items. Inside the packet were 2 kinds of seeds, one red and one blue. The red seed could make it grow giant for up to 2 hours. The blue seed would shrink it to a smaller size. Purchasing a set of red and blue seeds costs 1 RP point. If it could grow to human size it might be useful. So I fed it a red seed. The next second a bright white light burst forth. Then something hit me sending me flying several meters. And I opened my eyes and saw what was in front of me. I was completely stunned. The little guy had grown to over 10 meters tall. Seeing my shock, it smirked coldly, but growing bigger wasn't its only ability. It also had 3 skills. Digging, which was several times faster than modern excavators. Compacting soil. A few death rolls compacted the soil perfectly. The last skill is the most crucial. It can mold soil into specific shapes in its mouth. At this moment I was thrilled beyond words. This little guy alone solved the problem of lacking heavy machinery. Wouldn't this seem suspicious? Fortunately this world has summoners. As long as I carry a summoning book with me, and claim to be a summoning prodigy, wouldn't that solve the problem? Now I just needed to solve the manpower issue. Then I could start large-scale construction. The next day I gathered the soldiers of the territory. I began assigning them tasks to do. But these soldiers who did nothing all day but collect their salaries looked annoyed when they saw me, the scoundrel, giving orders. Their expressions were full of displeasure. I had anticipated this reaction. Suddenly a voice came from behind. Master Lloyd, what are you planning to make my soldiers do? I smirked inwardly. As expected this guy showed up. Newman, one of the 3 knights of the territory. In the early chapters of the novel when the territory declined, he was the first to betray the Baron and flee. Not only that he sold the Baron's information to con artists, he was one of the culprits behind the Baron's massive debt. And yet this trash was still an honored knight of the territory. So what do you think we're doing here? Newman declared that he would never tolerate his soldiers being made to do such menial tasks as digging and tilling soil. I couldn't help but find it amusing. He clearly despised me earning money to repay debts, yet spoke so righteously about it. I simply replied that the Baron had already given his permission. Seeing this, Newman brought up my past misdeeds, claiming I was using his soldiers for my personal gain. I calmly told him he was absolutely right. But you, Newman, really deserve a good beating. Newman was so enraged he clenched his teeth. But he couldn't act. Noticing I'd successfully provoked him, I scooped up a pile of sand and flung it in his face. The soldiers below were stunned by the sight. To them I was just a useless noble who couldn't do anything. Yet here I was daring to provoke a knight of merit. You scoundrel, are you tarnishing the honor of knights? I pretended not to hear what he was saying. What? You want to remove your rank insignia and fight me? Fine, let's duel in a month, no big deal. Newman seemed a little puzzled, but he decisively accepted the challenge. That night Havel came by curiously to ask if I was confident I could win. I nonchalantly shrugged. Are you an idiot? Of course I'm not confident. He's a beginner swordsman who can use a mana heart. I'm just a lazy scoundrel. How could I possibly beat him? Did you even think before asking? Havel was so annoyed that he almost drew his sword to cut me down right then and there. But his curiosity got the better of him. He couldn't figure out what I was up to. It was obvious I had provoked Newman on purpose. Yet now I claimed I couldn't beat him. What was I really planning? Then to his surprise I asked him to teach me swordsmanship. Without hesitation he firmly refused. His reasoning was that someone like me learning swordsmanship would only endanger the people around me. But I had a plan. If you teach me swordsmanship, I can help cure your insomnia. Havel was stunned to hear the word, insomnia. How does this guy know about that? Of course I knew, because of the novel. The ranks are divided into beginner, intermediate, advanced and sword saint. Havel was currently at the advanced stage, transitioning to sword saint. At this point all his nerves had become overly sensitive, which was why he couldn't sleep. Havel was curious about how I knew this, but he still agreed decisively. After all, he didn't believe I could actually cure him. He had tried countless methods to cure his insomnia, all to no avail. However, the next moment Havel was immediately proven wrong. Little did you know I've read the novel. What can you do against me? For the first time Havel had a good night's sleep. It was because he heard someone reading magic incantations. I didn't know any magic incantations, but I could read out loud from Reinforced Concrete Structural Design Theory. The effect would surely be 100 times stronger than any spell. Hee, from now on all your sword skills will be mine. Next day a refreshed Havel instructed me to run 50 laps. He thought I would give up immediately, but to his surprise I didn't resist. Instead I obediently started running, and after each lap I came back to mock him. Did you think I'd resist? And then you'd use it as an excuse to say I have no talent? Then turn around and refuse to teach me? Haha, I figured it all out, didn't I? So what now? I'm definitely finishing all these laps. Even the system couldn't help but praise me, calling me shameless. But in truth I was utterly exhausted. How could running 50 laps not tire me out? Still, it was much better compared to before. Back then I didn't even have a single family member left by my side. I lived day after day in a cramped rental room. Every single day was just about surviving. Each morning I moved bricks back and forth at the construction site. Just to avoid starving. Just to avoid being kicked out by the landlord. I lived holding on to the hope that things would get better someday. I kept convincing myself that if I endured a little longer things would get better. But in the end that hope turned into endless despair. So now this pain compared to that despair is nothing at all. At this moment a subtle change occurred in Havel's heart. Since you're so earnest about learning, I'll teach you my swordsmanship. Havel's favorability increased by 1 point. Meanwhile on the other side Newman was preparing to use dirty tricks in the duel. Even if the Baron came to question him afterward, he planned to eliminate both the Baron and his wife, making it look like they took their own lives. This way he could move to a larger city sooner as planned. A month later, the duel took place as scheduled. However, even before it began Newman was already furious. The Baron couldn't bear to watch, thinking the entire duel was just a farce. But Havel didn't see it that way. He believed that someone planning a joke wouldn't train diligently every single day, or spend time explaining underfloor heating techniques to the workers on site. The moment the duel began, an enraged Newman swung his sword at me. Seeing this I smoothly bent forward and arched my back. With an upward strike I neutralized his attack. Newman was slightly surprised, but his first thought was that I got lucky. However, with every subsequent attack, he found that I neutralized them in the same way. This is the essence of modern close combat techniques. Bayonet fighting. My years in the military weren't spent idly. Similarly, people in this world don't realize that a shovel is no ordinary tool. Its wide blade can act as a shield, and it's sharp enough to cut through thick roots. Combined with the footwork I learned from Havel's swordsmanship, and the derived shovel skills granted by the system, I gained a unique advantage. When I hold a shovel all my physical abilities are enhanced. This is the result of a month of training. Seeing that he couldn't defeat me, Newman activated this world's unique heart of magic. In the next moment his speed increased several times over. In an instant Newman was right in front of me. Without hesitation he swung his sword toward my neck. The Baron and his wife were convinced their son was doomed. At that moment I smiled. After all, there's a reason why Havel is the protagonist of the novel. He has his unique abilities. */ heart technique. Havel's unique magic method. It allows him to absorb external magic for his own use. In that instant Newman was completely stunned. You absorbed my magic. His panic caused him to expose a fatal opening. In a flash, I grabbed my shovel and slammed it right into his face. With that single strike Newman completely lost his ability to fight. But I wasn't planning to stop there. I landed another shovel strike to the back of his head. The soldiers watching were completely dumbfounded. No one could figure out what was going on. They were shocked that the so-called useless young master had defeated the decorated knight of the territory. Even the Baron in disbelief announced me as the winner. But during this thrilling moment of retribution, I wasn't about to stop there. A flurry of 5 rapid strikes forced him to beg for mercy. The Baron shouted for me to stop, but I acted like I didn't hear him. And the soldiers came to intervene. I pretended to comply for a moment. Then while they weren't paying attention, I grabbed the shovel again and landed a few more strikes. The other knight in the territory, Byron, thought I'd gone mad. Only Havel suspected that something deeper was going on. He had a feeling that this young master knew everything about the future. After all, just 15 days before the duel, I had suddenly asked to learn the */ heart technique. At that time it was still considered an incomplete technique. He had never mentioned it to anyone, so he asked how I knew about it. I put on a shameless grin. Maybe you were sleep-talking and I overheard. But other than that there was no other way for me to know. What's more baffling is that I claimed I could help perfect the technique. Following my suggested adjustments, he managed to break through and complete the technique on the spot. This was nothing like the scoundrel young master he once knew. While I was gleefully pounding Newman, Havel seemed to have realized something. The Baron couldn't bear to watch. Angrily he told me to stop. I calmly told him to check the letters on the table. The Baron was shocked after reading them. They were letters proving Newman's betrayal and collusion with outsiders. Newman was in disbelief. How could these have been found? He had hidden them so carefully. But having read the novel I knew exactly where they were hidden. Sending little bro to steal them was a breeze. The Baron, too kind for his own good, had been unaware of his subordinate's betrayal. Seeing that the Baron didn't know how to proceed, I offered him a suggestion. Drop a vicious rat on this man's head. If the rat injures him, exile him from the territory. If it doesn't, demote him to a common soldier and give him a chance to reflect. To those watching, this seemed like a fair opportunity for redemption. But little did they know. How could a knight possibly be injured by a mere rat? Everyone thought this was just a lenient way of sparing him. Newman also believed this was a mild punishment. But he showed no signs of remorse. In fact, the corners of his mouth began to curl upward. Deep down he resolved to take revenge at the first opportunity. Oh my, it's nice to see you smiling so brightly. Too bad it'll be the last time you smile. Hearing this, Newman broke into a cold sweat. Then he saw me feeding a red seed to the little mouse on my shoulder.